Alright, this is Robot with MTG doing another commander deck breakdown. This time the commander of choice is Endrek Sahr, Master Breeder. He's a 5-drop, 2/2. Whenever you play a creature, put X 1/1 black Thrall creature tokens into play, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. When you control 7 or more Thralls, sacrifice Endrek Sahr, Master Breeder. The whole idea of this deck is to have enough sack outlets, so whenever you play a creature, you'll be able to sack all the little tokens and get benefits from it. Profit. General just seemed like a lot of fun to me. The deck ended up being a lot of fun. It's a little, has a little more cheesy stuff in it than I usually like playing. I generally don't like to play some cards that are overpowered, just because it takes the fun away from the game. But there's some really good interactions in the decks. I'm actually going to start with the lands here. These are all the non-basics in the deck. They're honestly just kind of random. I just kind of randomly picked them. This deck is a rebuild from one that I had about 2 or 3 years ago, and it works really well with just basic lands. It's mono black, it's really easy to deal with. First we have Dakmor Salvage. The only benefit of that is if it gets destroyed, you can get it back. Dredges for 2. Gargoyle Castle turns into a 3/4 flyer, so that's another creature just in case. Reliquary Tower is a EDH staple. It's really good for when you draw a shit ton of cards, which is possible at some points in the game. Cabal Coffers, it makes your swamps into more swamps, which is always good. And the Wasteland, it's gold border, but I'm playing it anyways because it still looks like a real Magic card. It gets rid of your opponent's lands, his fancy lands. You could also put, what's it called? Fucking Tectonic Edge in that spot. It does the same thing. It's just a more budget version. And then we have 33 swamps in that massive pile, in this massive pile right here. Swamp sand, swamp sand, swamp sand, swamp sand, spaghetti, spaghetti. Look at these swamps. It's a lot of swamps. Makes the deck a lot more consistent. So, since the deck needs to play creatures in order to get the tokens, here are the top creature sack engines that I have. We start with the Nantuko Husks, basically. All 3 of these are the exact same creature, except this is a Vampire Rogue. That one's not an insect. They all cost 3 mana for a 2/2. You can sacrifice a creature to give it +2/+2 until end of turn. It's very, very, very good in this deck. It also helps save you from removal. So if somebody's going to try to put your general into your deck, they're trying to Fate Seal him or something like that, they can't. Because you can just sack him to one of these guys. They can't target it. Bloodthrone Vampire, just like these guys, only he costs 1 less mana and he's only a 1/1. Same idea. Fallen Angel is very good because of the evasion. You sack a creature, it gives it 2/1 until end of turn. So 3/3 for 5, has flying. It's really good, and the artwork is badass. That was one of my favorite artworks from back in the day. Next is one of the additions that I put in since the old deck list that I had, Flesh Eater Imp. I don't know if people that you play with 10 Infect or 15 or 20 Infect or whatever. Flesh Eater Imp will get there fast no matter what. 2/2 Infect Flyer for 4. You can sack a creature to give it 1/1 until end turn, which is, usually a 2/2 basically because it's Infect. It's really good. The last one on the far right is Phyrexian Plague Lord. This is one of the best cards in the entire deck. The first ability, not so much. You tap and sack Plague Lord. Target creature gets -4/-4 until end of turn. That's meh. That's very meh. The second ability, sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. That gets abused anytime he's on the battlefield. Is just way overpowered with this deck. Because you think, when you play him, he puts out 5 guys, assuming that Endrek Sahr is out. So you can give 5 different targets -1/-1, or one thing -5/-5. It's just super duper strong. Here we have all the sack outlets that are non-creature. The first one is the Dick Move spell, Contamination. It's an enchantment for 2 and 1 black. During your upkeep, you have to sack a creature or sacrifice Contamination. But whenever a land is tapped for mana, it produces black instead of what it should produce. Any land. So if your opponent is not playing black, they better have some artifacts that produce mana or they're going to lose. It's plain and simple. The card is very much a dick move, but the synergies with this deck are just too strong to not include it. Second card we have is Mind Slash. Another super, super powered card in this deck. Pay 1 black, sack a creature, look at target opponent's hand, choose a card from it, they discard that card. You can only play it at sorcery speed, but it's not going to matter. So for every 1 mana, you get a Thoughtseize, basically. 1 mana and a creature. It's just really strong. Next we have Phyrexian Altar, another super strong card. Sack a creature, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. That basically means any creatures that you play, as long as you have the 5 or 6 tokens out, the deck tries to stay around 6 tokens, there's no creatures over 6 drops. As long as you're at that area, all your creatures are free. You sack 4 guys to create 4 mana to play a 4-drop, which creates 4 guys. So it leads to a lot of crazy turns where you can play every single creature in your hand. Next we have Reprocess. It's not as much a sack engine as a big sack a lot of stuff at one time. Sack any numbers of artifacts, creatures, and or lands. Draw a card for each one sacked this way. For 4 mana, you can draw easily 6 to 10 cards without really worrying about anything. It's really good. Next is Carnage Altar. I'm kind of on the fence about Carnage Altar. I haven't had much luck with it. 3 mana, sack a creature, draw a card. It's so-so, but I'd honestly rather have Eldrazi Monument in that spot. I just don't have a Monument at this moment. Monument would be a lot better. Next we have Fallen Ideal. It makes any creature that I control into Fallen Angel, and the good part is it has the Rancor type ability. When it's put into the graveyard from play, it returns to my hand. I can put that on Endrek Sahr to, save him from large amounts of damage, stuff like that, or just another creature to swing in for the win. Next we have Mortar Pod. Mortar Pod is just another way to, ping off a little bit of extra damage. I'm not too fond of it, just because it's 2 mana to sack a creature, basically. But it is another way to get rid of some pesky creatures that are getting in the way. The last one we have is Plunge into Darkness. This is a cheap rare, 1/1 black, and it has an Entwine card. So choose one, sack any number of creatures, then gain 3 life for each sacrificed creature. If you think about it, if you have 6 tokens out, 2 mana for 18 life seems pretty good. The second ability is, look at the top X cards of your library, and then put one of those cards in your hand, remove the rest from the game. It's a decent way to filter through the cards to try to get something that you need a little more. It's not that great. I mean, you can entwine it for 3 mana and, try your luck. But generally, I just use it to gain a shit ton of life, because it does that really well. It's at instant speed. Nobody sees it coming. The removal suite in this deck is actually pretty small. The deck focuses a lot more on using the general than, removing things, but it needs a little bit just in case, because some board positions can get pretty crazy in EDH, as anybody that's watching this probably knows. First we have Go for the Throat. Self-explanatory. It's a really good card. 2 mana, instant, destroy target non-artifact. That'll kill anything that has a color. It's really good. Second is Tendrils of Corruption. Since the deck plays 33 basic swamps, it can net you a lot of life and deal a lot of damage. Also at instant speed. We have Barter and Blood. Poor Man's Damnation. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures, which in your situation is usually going to benefit you a lot more than them, because you have a lot of tokens, they probably won't. Next is Corrupt, along the same lines as Tendrils of Corruption, only you can choose if it hits a creature or player. Same idea, it's sorcery speed instead of instant. Next we have Smallpox. Honestly, the only reason Smallpox is in here is because I'm using all my other Innocent Bloods. But Smallpox is like an Innocent Blood on crack, basically. Each player loses a life, discards a card, sacks a creature, sacks a land. Which, again, in my scenario, I have plenty of basics. I actually have a little more land in this deck than I usually play. It's not going to be a problem. Last, we have Profane Command. Now, this is both a removal spell and a recursion spell, usually. That's generally what it's used for. But it's X and 2 black. All the abilities on it are, choose 2. Target player loses X life, or return target creature with converted mana cost X or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, or target creature gets -X until end of turn, or up to X target creatures gain fear until end of turn. Pretty much nobody cares about the fear part. All the other abilities are pretty damn good. These, minus the Mortar Pod, make up the equipment package in the deck. Lightning Greaves is pretty much the only one that's really necessary here, because it helps protect the general, and that's what you really want to do. I would have a Darksteel Plate somewhere in the deck, but I'm using all mine right now, again, so it's not in there, but definitely a good card to squeeze into a EDH deck if you have a general that's kind of squishy. Blade of the Bloodsheaf, 1 mana to 1 to equip. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature. If it's a vampire, put 2 instead. Basically, whenever you're sacking all your thralls, it just makes a creature benefit a lot from it. It's 1/1 counters, so you can move the sword, or the blade, and your other creature still has the benefit from it. It's really good. Last, we have Grafted Exoskeleton. This card can end games really fast. Equipped creature has 2/2 and Infect, and it equips for 2 mana. Whenever it becomes unequipped, destroy the creature. Usually you don't really care about the creature being destroyed. You put it on one of your guys as a sack engine to pump, and he is super scary. Here we have our assortment of non-creature spells that are just pretty much power spells. They don't really synergize a whole lot with the deck, but they're just really good to have. Phyrexian Arena is awesome. It should be in any black EDH deck, in my opinion. Beginning your upkeep, you draw a card, lose 1 life. It's a one-sided Howling Mine, and when you're at 40 life, 1 life isn't quite so bad. Second is Diabolic Tutor. For people who don't have Demonic Tutors or any of the more expensive tutors, it's a way to get 1 key piece that you need. I generally don't like playing tutors too much, but sometimes it really helps put the deck together and get a good, fun combo going. Next we have Sorin Markov. He's mainly in here because of his second ability. Target opponent's life total becomes 10. Seems good. You're at 10. Eat a dick. That's pretty much what it says. -3. You're at 10. Eat a dick. I need to change that text on there. Maybe I'll do that. Next we have Mind Sludge. A friggin' foil Torment Mind Sludge, by the way. That's pretty sick looking. Since it plays so many basics, again, just like Tendrils of Corruption and Corrupt, you can get a lot of good value out of a card like Mind Sludge. 5 mana, you can pretty much empty somebody's hand. Next is Army of the Motherfucking Damned. 13 2/2 zombie creatures tapped with flashback. That card is beast. It gives you either a lot of sacrifice fodder or a lot of friggin' scary board presence with all the zombies. It's really cool. Next is Extraplanar Lens. If you're low on lands, it kind of puts you over the top. Even if you're high on lands, it puts you way over the top because it makes all your stuff tap for double. It's really good. Next is Grave Pact. Grave Pact also can easily shut down a game, keep opponents from being able to do anything. It's a control-y kind of asshole card in this deck, but it's also really fun if you're playing it, so it's pretty amazing. Next we have Exsanguinate. That's another slot that I'd kind of meh. I just kind of toss something in there. I'd rather have something like Attrition. I think it's Attrition, where you can sack a creature to destroy a non-black creature. That just seems like it would be so much better. But there's a couple different things that could go in that slot that are better. Last is Beacon of Unrest. To put an artifact or creature from any graveyard into play under your control, and then shuffle Beacon back. That's pretty much the only reason it's in here is because it's potentially reusable. It shuffles back, and it can get a guy from somebody else's graveyard, which could be really good in certain scenarios. Next we have the creatures that provide some form of recursion. First is Gravedigger, pretty much a staple common, just gets back a creature from graveyard to your hand. He does the job. He'll usually get you back some sort of sack mechanic if you're missing it, and allow you to combo a little bit. Next is Hell's Caretaker. Tap, sack a creature, take a creature from your graveyard, and put it directly into play as though it were just summoned. So, that guy is the fair version of Recurring Nightmare that's available in EDH. He also works really well. Next is Balthor the Defiled. He gives minions 1/1, but who gives a shit? We're not playing minions. We're playing thralls, basically. But you can pay 3, remove him from the game to bring back all, what is it, red and black? No, just all black. Yeah, it is black and red. Brings all black and red creatures back. So all of your creatures come back aside from the 1 artifact creature in the deck. You're usually in a better position than the opponent is. On the end, we have Nezumi Grave Robber. This guy's a lot of fun. He's kind of like a Withered Wretch. He can remove creatures from the graveyard and cards from the graveyard, but it costs 2 mana. Whenever the last card is removed, he flips and becomes Night Eyes. Night Eyes is the good side of him. 4 and 1 black, put a creature card from a graveyard into play under your control. He's like Beacon of Unrest, minus artifacts, 10 times over. You can do it as many times as you want, which makes him really good. And he also has the potential to flip early game. If you play him turn 2 and say your opponent has only cracked a fetch, you can turn 3, remove the fetch, swing for 4. He gives you early beats too. He's just a really good rat wizard. These are the creatures in the deck that offer some form of removal. First we have Fleshbag Marauder. He's one of my favorite creatures actually. He's a lot of fun. 2 and 1 black, 3/1. When it comes into play, each player sacks a creature. So generally you can play him, sack him, and then everybody else sacks a creature. It's like another Innocent Blood type of ability, but it also gives you the body, which you could potentially recur, which is really good. Second, we have Gatekeeper of Malakir. It's an edict. You pay 3 mana, 3 black, which is very easy to get in this deck since all the basic lands again, and make your opponent sack a creature. Next is Skin Render. When it enters the battlefield, put 3 -1/-1 counters on target creature. It can either wither down 1 big creature or kill 1 smaller creature. He's really good. Next is Shriekmaw. Shriekmaw is serves kind of 2 purposes here. You can play him for his cost, 4 and 1 black, and you get a 3/2 fear. When it comes into play, Terror. It destroys target non-black, non-artifact. Or you can evoke for 2 mana. Even though he costs you 2 mana to play, he's still CMC 5. So Endrek Sahr says, hey, that's 5 thralls. I don't give a fuck. So you pay 2 mana, you Terror, you get 5 creatures. It's a lot of value for your mana. Next we have Necrotal. Same idea as Shriekmaw, only he's 4 mana, and he has First Strike. And he's white bordered, because my black border's in a different deck also. That picture's pretty badass though. After Necrotal we have Visara the motherfucking Dreadful. Tap, destroy target creature, can't be regenerated, 5/5 flyer for 6. She does work. Last we have Drana Kalastria Bloodchief. 5 mana for 4/4 flying is already pretty good by itself, but her ability is what makes her badass. X and 2 black. Target creature gets -0, -X until end of turn, and Drana gets +X, +0 until end of turn. So she'll kill something and pump herself a lot. She's pretty strong. Honestly, not as good as Plague Lord, but still really good for the deck. Next, we have the big creatures. Pretty much they're just in here because they're big creatures. First is Mortivore. 4 mana, star. His power and toughness is equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. He gets really big, really fast. He also regenerates for 1 mana, which is really good. Second is Corlash, Heir to Blackblade. His grand durability is useless, but by himself, he's very strong. Again, since the deck plays a lot of basic lands, lots of swamps, is lots of power and toughness. His power and toughness are equal to the number of swamps you control, and he also regenerates for 1 and 1 black. Next is Extractor Demon. It's honestly just a black creature that I like. He's not the best, but he's good. 6 mana for a 5/5 flyer. When another creature leaves play, you may have target player put the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. It doesn't matter whose creature leaves play, you can make a mill. Any target player. So if I sack a creature, they can mill too. Pretty good. He also unearths for 3 mana, which gives you that last little swing coming out of nowhere. Next we have Mikaeus the Unhallowed. This is another very new addition. 6 mana for a 5/5 Intimidate. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. The last ability is what's pretty beast about him. Other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Now, Endrek Sahr himself is a human, so he can't really benefit from Mikaeus, but every single other creature in the deck is non-human. So it buffs everything that you control and gives everything Undying. Last we have Nightmare. Again, like Corlash, benefits from the deck having so many basic lands, and also has Flying, which is really good. I don't have the old artwork, which is probably more badass, because I just remember it from growing up, but this one will do. It's a budget rare, gets the job done. I'm just going to go over the rest of the creatures sorted by converted mana cost, because I didn't really have a place to, tag them in with the other groups of creatures. They're just kind of good creatures that go in the deck that help the deck run. First we have Withered Wretch. Always a really good card to be playing if you're playing black. 1 mana, exiles target card in a graveyard. It's a 2/2 for 2. It's just really good. Whenever somebody targets some sort of recursion, you can exile the card, they can't get it. Second is Undead Gladiator. It's a good way to filter through some cards in your deck. I basically use him just for cycling. He's a 3/1 for 3, and it's not that great at face value. Pay 1 and 1 black to cycle it, discard a card, and then draw a card. And you can pay 1 and 1 black to discard a card from your hand to return it from your graveyard to your hand. So it lets you cycle through a card for basically 4 mana each turn. It's not the most efficient, but it can still get the job done. Next we have Vampire Nighthawk. It's just a really good creature. 3 mana for a 2/3 flyer with Death Touch and Lifelink. You can't beat that. After that we have Soot Imp. It's a 1/2 flyer for 3. Whenever a player plays a non-black spell, they lose 1 life. So you're very seldom going to lose any life at all because the deck doesn't play many non-black, and your opponents will generally lose a lot of life because of Soot Imp. He's usually hated quite a bit. After that we have Phyrexian Rager. 2/2 for 3. When it comes into play, draw a card, lose a life. 1 life is definitely worth 1 card, especially hooked to a creature. After that we have Miri the Cursed. 4 mana for a 3/2 flying first strike haste. That alone is pretty damn good. That's pretty much the reason she's in here. Whenever she deals combat damage to a creature, put a 1/1 counter on Miri. She doesn't have to kill it like most other vampires, she just has to damage it. Last, we have Necrotic Ooze. This is one that after I put the whole deck back together, I was like, why the hell isn't Necrotic Ooze in this deck? Every single one of the creature sack outlets, it gets those abilities as long as they're in the graveyard. Visara, you can tap to kill creatures. There's some regenerators in the deck. It's just really, really strong. It's basically another sack outlet with a bigger body. It's a 4/3 for 4. It's bigger than most of the other husks and stuff like that. It's just super good. And to round off the deck, we have the 5 and 6 drops. Like I said again, the deck doesn't go over 6 drops because if you have 7 thralls at any time, Endrek Sahr gets sacrificed. And you don't want that to happen. You want to keep him pumping out as many creatures as you can while he's out. First, we have Dross Golem. This guy is awesome to have in your hand if you're just playing Endrek Sahr. Because usually the turn that you play Endrek Sahr, you can't play anything else. You can't get value out of him right away. That's where he's kind of weak at. If you have Dross Golem, generally you'll be playing Endrek Sahr with 5 swamps. And Dross Golem is a 5-drop that has affinity for swamp, so it costs 1 less to play for each swamp you control. 3/2 Fear, he's just in here because he's usually free. He's 6 creatures for free, because you play himself, he's a 3/2, and then when Endrek Sahr's out, he puts out 5 guys. Next is Sizen, Perverter of Truth. He makes truth perverted, makes truth want to look at some titties. 5 mana for a 6/5. That in itself is pretty damn good. His quote-unquote drawback for being so big, at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. It's like a double Phyrexian arena for everybody. It's like a font of mythos that also damages your opponents. Well, and yourself, but it doesn't really matter that it's damaging you, because you get those extra cards that you can really put to use. Next is Ascendant Evankar. He's the cheap version of Eldrazi Monument for right now. He's a 3/3 flyer for 6. Other black creatures get +1/+1. Non-black creatures get -1/-1. The thralls that Endrek Sahr puts out are black, so they do get the bonus. They're 2/2s. It's pretty strong in this deck. Next is Phyrexian Gargantua. 6 mana for a 4/4. When it comes into the battlefield, draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. It's like a Phyrexian Rager, only it's double. It's exactly double. It's double the mana, double the cards, double the power and toughness. The last card is, again, one of my favorites. Somebody may have to correct me on the rules of this, but I believe it works out as, since it has Devour, that when it comes out, as it comes into play, it's devouring the 6 creatures, and then the 6 creatures come out. So it would remain at 6 creatures. It would remain under the 7 creatures when he gets played. Somebody may have to double check that with me, but that's the way I've been playing it. The exact wording of Devour is, he has Devour 2. As this creature comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature comes into play with twice that many 1/1 counters on it. So it's technically not in play, it's just as it comes into play. So I think it's just kind of floating, like it's floating to go into play, and then all the creatures get sacrificed, and then he creates all the creatures. But when he comes into play, target player discards a card for each creature devoured. Generally, you're going to try to devour 6 creatures, so he'll come out, he'll get 12 1/1 counters, and he'll make somebody discard 6 cards. 6 mana for a 16/16 that says target opponent discards 6 cards. Very, very strong. I think that about sums up the Endrek Sahr Master Breeder deck. I searched through a lot of legendary creatures and came to this guy being one of the most fun to build a deck around, just because he's kind of teetering at all points in time. You're always trying to, keep him under the 7. He's not completely overpowered because he doesn't continuously make thralls infinitely. You do have to keep him in check. It's just really cool manipulating creatures that are in play, sacrificing and stuff like that, and manipulating, your opponents in the process with cards like, Grave Pact and Contamination and stuff like that. He's a lot of fun to do if you want a monocolored general. and a little more consistent of a land base, he's definitely a fun one to check out. If you want to check out any other articles on Commander decks or casual Magic, upcoming sets, stuff like that, check out ajmtg.com. I'll put a link down in the description. The articles I write are for Uber Robot. Any ones you see that name on, that's the ones I do. So check them out. Leave some comments on there. And yeah, have fun playing some EDH / Commander.